Beauty of the Evidence Act, not a file.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the Evidence Act, now it's fine.
India. Oh, you might not get him back.
All stand. Coronial Court now stands. Please be seated.
Yes, Mr. Robson, for reasons which I'll publish at a later date, to the extent that the penalty privilege applies in these proceedings, in my view, it is modified by section 38 of the Coroner's Act. And in addition, for the reasons set out in rule number 3, it's expedient for the purposes of justice that Sergeant Kirkby be required to continue to answer the questions. Accordingly, I will grant Sergeant Kirkby a certificate under section 38 of the Coroner's Act.
Please just, could I have a moment to confer with my client?
Sure. Do you need to go on?
Well, give me 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Certainly, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes.
All stand. Coronial Court is temporarily adjourned.
Or to advise him to refuse. Despite the situation that she's directing him now, that she will answer the question, he can Good looking.
All stand. Coronial Court now stands this morning.
Thank you for that time, Your Honour. We're prepared to press on with the benefit of the certificate in appropriate instances. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honour. I recall Sergeant Paul Kirkby.
Sergeant, you're on the same basis as today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sergeant Kirkby, in front of you should be a document which is now labelled MFIRR and contains some text messages. I asked you about those text messages again, yesterday, and I am going to ask you some more questions about them now. It might be a convenient time, Your Honour, just so we don't interrupt the flow going forward. I understand that a certificate is formally requested and will be granted in respect of these matters.
I indicated this.
Thank you.
I'll grant that certificate in relation to any evidence that we see it to be granted in relation to Mr. Watson.
Sorry to hear, Your Honour.
I'll grant the certificate in relation to any questions and evidence given that you see.
Thank you.
Sergeant, yesterday I was asking you some questions about text messages that were sent and received on the 3rd of September 2019. Just want to go back a bit to the first thread of those text messages on MFIRR. If you have a look down the bottom of page 1, you'll see them. On the 3rd of September at 11:49, the text exchange begins. You're having a conversation where Constable Rolfe says to you, I'm putting in for the TRG spot again. 90% chance I won't get it. They're prioritising applicants with bush time. All other applicants, 3 others, have bush time. And and then he goes on to say, but I've got to put the Your response is, true. How does the bush time put your application ahead? It doesn't. It's just an arbitrary decision made by the bosses. And Constable Rolfe says, ha ha, I know, they're fucking idiots, prioritising lads that go out bush so they can be lazy and do no work. And your reply is, there's probably 2 places, bush places up north that show you're keen if you apply for them. They seem absolute shitholes and you get worked to death, apply for them and maybe the bush stint would be something, is probably what it means to say. Yesterday, Sergeant, you agreed that the role of Sergeant is a very important leadership role.
I did.
And you're modelling standards of behaviour, in effect, for your team. That is, for your patrol group.
Correct.
And can I suggest to you that the behaviour that you're modelling in that exchange is that it's okay to call bosses fucking idiots?
I don't know. I'll ask for a certificate in relation to this line. I'm not clear in Your Honour's approach. Raise it before the event or after the event?
I am granting a certificate in relation to answers that might criminate your client in any future proceedings.
including internal administrative proceedings.
Yes. So, it would be cool if we could agree on a way for that to occur without having to stand up in relation to each and every answer.
Yes, I appreciate that.
That's how I understood Your Honour's ruling and why I raised it at the outset. I understand it to be in effect a certificate globally that covers any evidence that will follow.
Anything that might criminate in any future proceedings.
Yes, but is that a matter Your Honour will invite submissions on after the event, or for me to raise before the event, because that might be arguable?
It's raised and dealt with as far as I understand it, and Your Honour has ruled on it in effect, that certificate will be granted to cover the evidence given in these proceedings.
Yes.
Very well, thank you.
Sergeant Kirkby, I read you that exchange. You have it in front of you. You've agreed that Sergeant performs an important role in modelling behaviour. On reflection, do you agree that the behaviour you're effectively sanctioning or there is that it's okay to call bosses fucking idiots?
I think, Your Honour, that basically is what I'm saying. That's the language I'm using, he's using. I think, is it myself? Yeah, that I'm using, so I am saying that's okay.
And
Rightly, obviously wrongly.
And you're saying it's okay for Constable Rolfe to have said that bush cops are lazy, because you don't pull him up on that?
Your Honour, and I don't know whether this is the right. I had a problem with people going bush. We had obviously I'm a PG sergeant or a patrol group sergeant. We have 6 people, maybe 8 people if we're flush. If someone goes bush, you don't get replaced, or generally you don't get replaced unless they're going for a long time. My complaint, and I think this is where I'm coming from here, is you would have people on the PG who would maybe not work as hard, their caseloads would rise, and then a spot would come up for 2 weeks and they'd put their hand up and disappear. And a couple of them asked, can I get my cases redistributed to the rest of the PG? I absolutely hated that. When I'm talking about, I'm not talking about bush. I talked yesterday about being out bush and how hard you work and what you do. And I know that, and this was a fear of coming here and answering these questions, that I didn't want the bush cops to say that I was saying all of them were lazy, but some people disappear because they don't want to answer the radio or their caseload is getting too heavy. That was the people I was talking about, Your Honour.
I appreciate that that's part of your reasoning, which you've now explained to Her Honour, but you're familiar with the idea that the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept? Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
You had an obligation, didn't you, to set a standard by calling out bad behaviour and by setting a positively good example. Do you agree with that?
I do, and yes, I do.
And in effect, what you did in this text message is leave unquestioned Constable Rolfe's comment that the bosses were fucking idiots, one, and that lads who went out bush did so they can be lazy and do no work. Do you agree with that?
And we may have talked about it. I didn't pull him up on that, I don't think, because I probably accepted it, because I probably thought that that's who we were talking about.
And have a look at page 3. There's another comment about bush cops. On the 22nd of September, line 16. Everyone knows police go out bush because they're fucking lazy. That's a comment that you made to Constable Rolfe.
That's correct.
So the behaviour you're modelling is that it's okay to be contemptuous of bush cops.
Again, I would say it's cops that go bush, not bush cops. Obviously, some of the bush cops aren't going to be kind of the hardest workers, some of them, but some of them are, so I don't want to generalise.
And Sergeant Kirkby, do you remember the question I asked you, which is that the behaviour you're modelling in that text message is that it's okay to call bush cops lazy? Do you agree with that?
That's what I'm modelling there.
And I suggest to you that that was a serious failure of leadership on your part at that time. Do you agree with that?
Correct. I'd agree with that now.
At the time, is it right that you didn't see any harm in exchanging those text messages with Constable Rolfe?
Correct.
You were exchanging them as mates, in effect?
Yeah. On your PG, you get quite close to people.
And you were colleagues having a whinge together or a moan, in effect, about work, correct?
Correct.
But straight after, on the 3rd of September, if you have a look at page 2, is when you continue with Constable Rolfe and say, sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you didn't need. You sorted it well. I just had enough. He was the second person to press my button that night. And the reply, as you know, from Constable Rolfe is, bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once before. I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film, ha ha. And your reply is, and the Oscar goes to, and he says, ha ha. I suggest to you that the behaviour you're modelling in that exchange is that, first, it's no big deal to lose your shit on the job. Second, it's no big deal to make your camera face the other way and act up for the body worn. And third, the right thing to do is to cover for your mates if they lose their shit. What do you say about that?
Propositions there, I think.
I'll take them. I'll take them one at a time. First, the behaviour you're modelling is that it's no big deal to, in your words, lose your shit on the job.
I'd have to disagree there, Your Honour, because I've actually called him or texted him and apologised for losing my shit. I think if I thought it was no big deal, then I wouldn't have done anything.
Do you say that what you did on that day was out of character for you?
I would. I know my language isn't good, but it may stand out a little bit in the police station. I don't lose my temper generally. I would say it's out of character.
And you were concerned with the way that you had behaved in front of Constable Rolfe on that job?
I was.
What was it that concerned you about your own behaviour? What had you done? You've got a certificate now. It covers you for anything you might tell Her Honour. Can I just ask you to be frank about what you were concerned about?
Your Honour, it is the same as yesterday. I don't know what you would call it, a spray. There was a foot chase. I did catch the chap. The shouting at doesn't make... We had a shouting match.
So yesterday, Sergeant, yesterday you said you pushed him.
Just let me finish.
Beg your pardon, Your Honour.
But I don't know. It was an incredibly heated argument. The language was foul. My language was foul.
What language did you use?
I don't know. I don't recall. But,
Racist language?
Your Honour, sorry?
Racist language?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I really doubt it. But I use expletives a lot.
Who was the chap?
I don't actually know, Your Honour.
Where was it? Where was the foot chase?
Just through one of the camps, Your Honour. I don't know what the job was, but we ended up, I think that he was the person I was looking for. I don't know what the job was. And he's ignored me. I've started going after him. He started running, and then it was over fences and things like that. So, but I don't know who the chap was.
And then when you caught up with him, what did you do?
He's crashed into a metal, I think it was like a garden shed. It could be a fence, it could be a house. I just thought it was a garden shed. I've grabbed him and lost my shit.
In what way?
Just shouting.
When you say he crashed into a metal shed, how did that happen?
We were running full speed. He was trying to get away from me. I was trying to catch up. I don't know how it worked, but he's kind of crashed into the side of it.
And who were the officers who were there at that time?
Constable Rolfe has turned up shortly after. I don't know who he was working with, but Constable Rolfe was there, and I think, they've taken him away.
And so there was more than one officer who took him away, that gentleman?
He would have been working with someone.
Was your body-worn video on for that?
No,
Do you know if Constable Rolfe had his body-worn video turned on for that incident?
I don't know, but looking at the texture on it, it would appear so.
And am I right that your evidence yesterday was that there was no use of force incident report in relation to that?
I didn't do one. I didn't do a use of force.
Why not?
I think sometimes you get it wrong. I think this chap wasn't charged with anything. There was we didn't get a complaint. And
Did or didn't? Say?
didn't. There was no complaint, but I can't remember what the complaint was in the first place.
Can you remember why he was being chased?
I think, like I said initially, I thought and I'm kind of stretching my memory here, if he fit the description given.
What offence was the description given for? What were you looking for?
I don't know. It was a person, and so obviously he fit the description.
And you referred to Constable Rolfe's response in relation to his camera. Can you remember now what he did with his camera?
No, afterwards I don't know what happened at the time.
Sergeant, I appreciate that what you did there was apologise to Constable Rolfe for what had happened because you were worried about it. That's your evidence?
Worried about how I reacted.
And the question I put to you is that my suggestion is that the behaviour you were modelling in that text exchange was that it was no big deal to lose your shit. The reason I put that to you is if you look at Constable Rolfe's response to you, you're saying sorry about losing my shit the other night, and his response is, bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once. I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film, ha. And the Oscar goes to, is what you say, and he wrote back, ha. So you're effectively sending them the message that it was no big deal. Constable Rolfe says, bro, there was literally no stress about it. And then you engage in a light-hearted banter with him. What you should have said is, no, it actually is a problem if you lose your temper like that. And I'm going to do something about it. Isn't that what leadership was required in those circumstances?
I've no doubt that is the right response, Your Honour. Whether that response made me feel better about my response, how I acted, that it was no big deal. I'd obviously thought it was a big deal because I texted him to apologise. But I let Constable Rolfe down. I let the police down.
The other message I'm going to suggest that you sent there, because of the exchange with Constable Rolfe, is that it was no big deal to make your camera face the other way and, as he puts it, act or be dramatic. You know, he uses the term be a dramatic cunt for the film, but in effect he's saying, you interpreted him to say, act up for the film.
I did. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
And the message you send by replying to him and the Oscar goes to is to say that's allowed, acting up for the camera.
Basically, I think that's what I said.
What do you want to say about that in terms of the leadership role you were supposed to be performing?
There wasn't, in this instance, there wasn't a great deal of leadership going on in this text exchange.
You were in effect comforted by being able to have a laugh about it with Constable Roll.
I think so. I was, yeah.
Where in effect you should have pulled him up on the suggestion that you can misuse body-worn video evidence.
I should have.
More importantly than just the text message was the actual behaviour on the day.
Her Honour's is referring, of course, to the fact that if Constable Rolfe did do something with his camera where he turned it around, does that concern you?
Not at the time.
What about now on reflection?
Reflection, yes.
Bit hard to pull him up on that behaviour, isn't it, when you're engaging in a joking text exchange with him?
I think so. Not in all. Yeah, I think so.
But it's a bit hard to pull him up when he's doing it to protect you.
Correct, it is.
Noted yesterday that 11 of the 45 use of force incidents reports put in by Constable Rolfe were signed off by you. You're aware of that?
I am now, yeah.
And can I suggest to you that Her Honour will understand that as a Northern Territory police officer, you often have to deal with challenging behaviours. But in these circumstances, when you were to supervise Constable Rolfe for uses of force, it was a serious dereliction of your duties to engage in that sort of banter with him about the misuse of body-worn. Do you accept that?
Can you say it again?
Sure.
Sorry.
Given that you were a supervisor for 11 of the 45 use of force incidents, it was, I'll just put it as a failure of leadership. It was a serious failure of leadership on your behalf to engage in that banter with him about the misuse of body-worn.
Yes.
Paragraph 17 of your statement.
Can I just ask this question? At that time, that is the 3rd of September 2019, what controls were in place around securing body-worn video?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, if you know the answer, you might not.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What controls were in place at that time around securing body-worn video?
When you take your camera off, it gets docked into a docking thing, and that's downloaded.
Is there any way of avoiding that?
No, I don't think so, Your Honour. It charges it and it downloads it.
Is it downloaded for every job, Sergeant, or only for jobs where you specifically ensure that it's downloaded?
I'm obviously not an expert. Each time you turn it on, and it runs for a certain length of time, then you turn it off, you turn it on again. When you download or when you put it in the docking station, it downloads and records those times.
The body-worn video footage is then attached to certain jobs if they're created, is that right?
Yeah, someone would have to go in and...
And the body-worn video is not kept forever, is it?
No, I don't think so. There's a certain length of time. I don't know what it is, and it goes.
So if it's not attached to a particular job, it disappears eventually.
3 months, 6 months, a year or something like that, Your Honour.
I think we'll hear evidence that it's 12 months, Your Honour. But it means, doesn't it, that in circumstances where there was no job created for this person who was chased, that body-worn video no longer exists. Is that your understanding?
If it wasn't assigned to anything, that would be
It
correct.
would never have come to light.
No.
Is that right?
Was that part of the decision-making process?
Part of the
Decision-making process about what to do following this incident?
no, I don't think so, Your Honour.
Sergeant, did you make a decision not to charge this chap who you chased because you had lost your shit during the job? Lost your temper?
If I remember correctly, there was no complaint. Whether that came from comms or whether that came from whoever, but there was no complaint.
No complaint by the person, no complaint by who?
Whoever called us, whatever reason we went there.
So you were chasing this individual who you didn't know in the absence of a complaint?
Obviously, the complaint by virtue of maybe someone ringing up and being dispatched to a job. But if someone can ring up and say so-and-so has done something, we still have to get a complaint off that person.
Would you have to write up that incident in your notebook at the time that you chased a person in response to a...
Normally you would, yeah.
I take it that your notebook from August and September 2019, your police issue notebook, is still in existence?
Probably.
Where would that be?
Darwin.
Where is that stored? Do you hand that
Possibly the Darwin station.
You hand that notebook in when it's full, is that right?
No.
What happens to it?
I keep it.
And have you disposed of any notebooks since August 2019?
One has been disposed of.
What date did that cover?
I don't know.
And one,
But that's the only one I remember. I left it in my shirt and it got washed.
and do you put in a report when you lose or dispose of a notebook?
I didn't. I don't know if you're supposed to.
When did that happen, that you lost that notebook or it got washed and then disposed of?
That would be last year sometime.
I take it you'd be happy to look for the notebook that you carried in August, September 2019
Yep.
to see if we can identify that job.
I would.
I assume you keep all your notebooks in one place.
I think so. Normally in a locker or...
Do you think it's in your locker at work?
Sorry?
Do you think it's in a locker at work?
I think so.
Just, is Your Honour asking the witness to produce the notebook?
Yes, I call for it, Your Honour. Is there, before I finish on that line of questioning, Sergeant, is there any reason why you would not have written up that job in your notebook?
No.
For example, if you lost your temper with that person, would you have...
I may have just the date, the time, what it was, where I was.
who you were with?
I would have been, well, yeah. I would have been working by myself.
Well, Constable Rolfe.
But came along.
And did you ever obtain the details of that person? That is, did you get a name or date of birth for that chap?
I didn't, but I believe Constable Rolfe did.
At the time, did you see Constable Rolfe make any notation in his notebook?
I can't remember.
Sergeant, you prepared a statement to assist Her Honour, and it is dated the 19th of August 2022. At the time that you wrote that statement, you say at paragraph 17, I have never heard of any member deliberately turning off a camera. I have never heard of any member turning off a camera deliberately to avoid capturing an incident. Was that true at the time you wrote it?
That was true.
Had you forgotten about this text exchange with Constable Rolfe?
Well, I checked. It doesn't follow from the text exchange, so it's been turned off.
It may not, but
Have you ever heard of members failing to turn on a camera to deliberately avoid capturing an incident?
No, that still stands, Your Honour.
At the time that you wrote this, you had clearly heard of a member turning their camera or being prepared to make their camera face the other way and act for the film, correct?
Well, I would have read the text in 2019, but the question was, and I wasn't trying to be smart or anything, have I ever known anyone to turn their camera off to avoid capturing an incident? And I answered no.
In relation to
This particular incident that we're talking about, you were exercising a power and you failed to turn your camera on.
I did.
And was that deliberate?
No.
How could you fail to turn it on when you saw someone, a person of interest, and then commenced a pursuit? How could you fail to turn your camera on in those circumstances?
Maybe I started running and just forgot about the camera. Maybe it's a double tap type thing for the camera. Sometimes it doesn't turn on because you don't push it correctly. I think I explained in my statement that I've previously turned my camera on waiting or believing that it was on, but I'd actually turned the main switch off.
Constable Rolfe texts you, I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be dramatic. I'll leave out the next word, be dramatic for the film. Had you seen him do that on more than one occasion?
No, Your Honour.
Do you recall him doing that on this occasion?
No, from the text, but not at the time.
Well, now you've refreshed your memory from the text. What do you recall him doing with the camera?
I can't remember seeing him, but I don't know. At the time, I don't know.
What about now, Sergeant? What do you remember him doing to act up on the film?
I think he was shouting. That was,
Shouting what?
I don't know.
Shouting in some way to suggest that a police officer had been injured?
Or that to drown me out, I don't know.
So shouting to suggest a police officer had been injured, or shouting to cover up something that you were saying? Is that right?
I think the latter. I don't think anyone was injured.
What were you saying that he was shouting over the top of?
I don't know. I was probably telling the chap what I thought of him.
What Constable Rolfe replies to you is this, if you just remind yourself from page 2, where you're saying sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you didn't need, you sorted it well. What did Constable Rolfe do to sort it?
I think he just talked to the chap and took him away, just wherever he went.
Are you just offering that? Are you making that up now, or do you have a memory of it?
Well, I didn't take him away, so I didn't have a cage.
So are you just assuming that that's how he got out of that area, the person that you detained?
I can't say with confidence that I know they took them or he took them, but I'm assuming that's what happened.
What Constable Rolfe replies to you is this, bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once before. What had he done to you more than once before?
I don't know what that means.
Well, you're saying, I'm sorry for losing my shit.
Put me under stress. I don't know.
Bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for that shit. What shit is he talking about?
Imagine giving a verbal spray.
And he says, I've done the same thing to you more than once before. What did you take that to mean?
I can't, I really don't know.
The behaviour that you're modelling and exchanging in that text with him is that it's okay to lose your temper, at the very least, by giving someone a verbal spray. Do you accept that?
The text was to apologise for.
Sure,
Yeah.
but when he replies saying there's literally no stress about it, I'm all for that shit, I've done the same thing to you, you just engage in light-hearted banter.
It's already answered this line of questioning. I'm just going back over the same pattern.
Yes, I think it's been asked.
Oh my God. In saying that here that you were sorry about the stress you caused losing your shit the other night, and this was the second person to press my button, were you essentially saying that you were having difficulty coping with your workload or anything else at work?
No, I think I'm simply saying that two people pushed my button that night. Just wound me up. Maybe, I don't know what the workload was like at the time. It's generally heavy. I don't know. I don't know what the first chat was.
At paragraph
or the first
20,
person.
Sergeant, at paragraph 21 of your statement, you say, I think it would be naive to say that working in the Northern Territory Police hasn't affected me negatively. I think this is a complex issue and I'm unable to answer in a way that will adequately explain or articulate how I feel. I'm asked if I have developed negative attitudes towards Aboriginal members of the community. I would have to ask what community. And then if you go down to paragraph 22, you're talking about Aboriginal people in Alice Springs who come in for the sole purposes of accessing alcohol. I would have to ask what community would these people belong to. I would have to say that I do have negative attitudes to these people. Did you lose your temper or lose your shit, in your words, because you were developing negative attitudes towards Aboriginal people in town?
No, I imagine in this instance it was because, as I've explained, that just getting into the foot chase, someone not listening, someone trying to get away.
You're reaching out to a colleague here and saying, sorry about what happened. He was the second person to press my button. Did you think at that time that you were having trouble coping with the sort of things that you were seeing and doing in the force?
Did I think I was having trouble?
Yes. At that time?
No.
What about now, looking back on it?
I think earlier this year I decided I was having trouble.
And did you reach out for help at that time?
I did.
When you were a sergeant and you had a number of people in your patrol group, did you see any of them struggling to maintain or to manage their temper when they were on jobs like this?
No, some would surprise you with the language in the mustering, coming back, and it would just be whatever, just people who don't generally swear would be swearing and things like that.
What about racist language?
No.
What about language critical of the people who you just tried to arrest or arrested?
Yeah, that would be quite common.
Would you talk to them about that in any way?
You'd probably find out what was happening.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. When someone would come into the mustering and they'd be talking, I would go out to see what was happening if I was there.
Were there any... Sorry, Sergeant, were there any circumstances where you suggested that people in your patrol group should seek some help, mental health help, support?
Yes. By virtue, there's sometimes situations that you have to go into. Events that you have to attend and things like that, motor vehicle crashes and things like that, and so you would put in a, I think it's called an ES. I don't know what ESS stands for, but it's a referral for, and the police psychs would get in touch with that person.
Were there any occasions, Sergeant, when somebody in your patrol group demonstrated a loss of temper or a loss of control that you're aware you can recall?
Not that I can think of.
Because you're reviewing use of force incidents, that gives you a good opportunity, doesn't it, to try and pick up on when someone in your patrol group might not be coping?
By doing the use of force.
Well, by doing the use of force review,
Yeah.
are you looking at body-worn video footage?
Generally,
Including on jobs when you're not there, obviously.
yeah.
So it gives you an opportunity, doesn't it, to effectively look at what some of your patrol group is doing, or people outside your patrol group on occasion?
Sometimes people outside your patrol group would put a use of force through another sergeant because they were there. They're going on days off and their sergeant might not get to it. You would review the CCTV, the body worn, the statements and the write-up.
So would you always do that for any use of force incident that you're reviewing? Look at the body worn video footage, the statements and the write-up?
Yeah, that's kind of how you do it.
That gives you a good overview, doesn't it? It gives you an opportunity to pick up on any behaviour that concerns you.
I'd have to say no. Sometimes you would go and see someone with a use of force and is this what you're saying because they wrote it poorly? Not to word it right so it can get cleared or anything like that, but this is what it says or this is what it appears to me. And so you would talk about the incident. I think I did that once, but that wasn't anyone on my patrol group.
Sergeant, we might be at cross purposes. What I'm suggesting is if, for example, you were watching a body-worn video footage and somebody on your patrol group or outside it was screaming at an alleged offender, abusive words, or using a tone that was unacceptable, doesn't that give you the opportunity to go and speak to that person afterwards and say, listen, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? That job looks like it was getting to you.
No. With arrests, and the cameras aren't particularly good, you'll have people screaming and it'll be for whatever, get down on the ground or something like that. But if they're being dynamic, if you would have a word afterwards, if the arrest has been completed and there's still, but I can't remember doing that.
So you can't remember seeing anything in a review of any use of force incident that concerned you in terms of the behaviour of a police officer? Is that right?
Maybe. No, I'm going to say no. Nothing. I don't think so. I imagine I would have brought it up if it concerned me, but I'd have to say no.
Who would you have brought it up with?
If it would go, I would task the use of force.
Have you ever gone and had a word to one of your officers and said, listen, I'm going to approve the use of force, but I'm concerned about the language you used, or anything like that?
Maybe. I don't know.
Sounds like that's not something that you would typically do. That's not something that you see as your role in the sergeant.
I know it's not 2019. In Darwin, I went and had a chat with someone about their language on the body worn.
What sort of language?
Just using the C word.
Towards an alleged offender?
Yeah,
By you mean CUNT?
Yep.
And was that something that became the subject of a complaint or something that was guidance given by you towards?
That was guidance. There was no complaint. There was just somewhat of not so much an operation, but there were some people in Darwin who had kind of moved in and were living on the park type area. So we were trying to move them along. For whatever reason, I've gone into someone's body worn and had a look, and it was, I just pointed out that he should mind his language.
I'm not going to ask you for the name of that officer or anything like that, but what had that person said to Civilian.
It was like a group of people trying to move them along. It was like, move on, CUNTs, come on, come on.
And they were Aboriginal people, is that right?
They were.
Did it concern you that the officer using those terms, move on, I'm just going to say the language because,
Yes.
Unless Her Honour has any objection, move on cunts to a group of Aboriginal people, did that concern you that was racist?
No. I'll cut you off before you go too far. It was a ACPO.
And did you spoke to that ACPO about his language, is that
Yeah.
right? And what then became of that? What did the person reply to you?
I think he just said, sorry, Sergeant.
If that language was used by somebody who wasn't an ACPO, would it concern you that might have racial connotations?
No, like I said, my language is bad. I might call someone something, but like if I call them a CUNT and they're an Aboriginal chap, I'm just meaning they're a CUNT.
Well, would you call a civilian?
Well, I have to interrupt you. I mean, now examining this witness about something that occurred in Darwin at some time, as I understand things. We're not even dealing with matters of supervision of Zachary Rolfe. We've now moved to Darwin and exploring what's happening in Darwin subsequent to the events, the subject of this inquest.
I don't want to spend long on this, Your Honour, but it's pretty, and I don't want to spell it out for this witness either, but there's an issue in relation to the leadership that needs to be taken in the use of language.
Yes. As long as we don't spend too much further on it, Dr. Dwyer.
Sergeant, would you use that language when you're talking to a group of civilians or a civilian who's an Aboriginal person, you're asking them to move on?
No, probably. No, I can't imagine.
I'm going to move on to an issue involving a supervision of use of force on 2 occasions by you. One of them was the case of Christopher Walker, which occurred on the 22nd of June 2019. You were the reviewing officer in relation to that job, correct?
I don't know.
Show you this document. Peruse it if you would, for the benefit of my friends. It's 3-162, Promise 900 5467 case note. No, because I've just given it to the witness.
3-162.
And then Promise 900 5467. Do you see that, Sergeant? It's a use of force from the 22nd of June 2019. It's video, just so everybody understands, that's already been shown to the court, involving an arrest of someone who was suspected to be armed, and the complainant locked himself in a bathroom. Information was given to members that the offender was inside the house and armed with a knife, and we heard evidence through Officer Sykes that 3 police officers entered the house with their Glocks drawn, and we can see that on the body-worn video. If you have a look at page 3, down the bottom you see supervisor details, member Kirkby, Paul Michael. Was the supervisor present during the incident? No, etc. So just to refresh your memory from this job, I'll just ask that a small portion of it be played. So this is the Christopher Walker. It's been sent to you, sent to the court officer, and it's from the body-worn video footage from Constable Roll.
Doors open. Police, don't move! On the ground now! Get on the fucking ground! Get on the fucking ground!
Probably sufficient, thanks. Do you recall that you were the reviewing officer now for this job?
Yeah, reading this, yeah.
And did you watch the body-worn video footage at the time that you reviewed the incident?
Yeah, it says viewed at completion of incident.
And were you present at all on the occasion in relation to the arrest or anything to do with the job?
I don't believe so, no.
You write in the supervision details of the report, entry to property was rapid and dynamic with a view to protect the victim. Male located immediately upon entry to the house. Clear commands and instructions were given and subsequently ignored, resulting in him being pushed and ground stabilised. At what point in that video that you just saw did the alleged offender ignore the instructions?
I think he was told to get on the ground.
And do you agree that he was given a fraction of a second to get on the ground with his hands up, with guns pointing at him?
I've got no problem with that.
Looking back on that, do you accept that it doesn't appear that he was ignoring commands, or do you maintain that he was?
He was told to get on the ground. He put his hands in the air.
Do you think it was acceptable to push him when he was given a second or around that period of time before he got in the ground?
I believe that's acceptable, yes.
Do you think he might have been terrified when police burst through the door with their guns drawn, or frightened?
I hope so. That was the intention.
Do you think that that might have, that in fact it may not have been a refusal to obey a command, but just needing a second to process what was happening in those circumstances?
No, he was told what to do.
Did you have any difficulty with him being told, get on the fucking ground, and pushed at the same time?
None whatsoever.
You don't have any difficulty with police using that language when they're talking to civilians in those circumstances?
Civilian offenders
Alleged offenders?
at that stage?
Well, the evidence given yesterday by Mr. Kirkby was that, Officer Kirkby...
That's me.
Officer Sykes, I'm sorry, was that they didn't know whether he was in fact the offender or the victim at that time.
Yep, I've got no problem with that language.
Next job that I wanted to show you shortly involved Antonio Woods, who made a complaint on the 28th of June. Just to refresh your memory about that, on that day, Mr. Woods was at Walprig Camp in Alice Springs and the police attended in response to a fight. When Mr. Woods saw the police, he ran towards the truck stop on Stewart Highway. He was chased on foot by police. He tripped and fell to the ground. Mr. Woods later complained that while he was lying face down on the ground, a member of the police force kicked the left side of his face and the back right side of his head about 6 times. He further alleged that after being kicked in the head, a member of the police force pulled him up to his feet by holding the back of his neck and he felt like he was being choked. He sustained bruising and swelling to his face, head and neck, dizziness and shortness of breath. The complaint was investigated and there was insufficient evidence because in effect it was his word against the police. But a number of other issues were identified in relation to this matter. Does that refresh your memory?
It does. I did actually see the body worn.
You've seen that recently?
Yes, I can't remember where though.
Just ask that it be played briefly now, it doesn't take long.
Oh, I saw it here. Sorry, I was watching the...
When Constable Kirstenfeld...
Kirstenfeld.
Sergeant, this young gentleman, Anton Woods, he'd been run from the location. It was. Is your name Constable Kirstenfeld? Are you talking to the sergeant? Then shut up! Sergeant, as I was saying, this is Anton Woods. He's run from
Is it an offence to interrupt a police officer, Sergeant?
No.
Would it justify putting somebody in the back of a cage because they interrupted a sergeant?
I think he was in the back of the cage.
Well, do you heard what Constable Kirstenfeld said? Shut up.
Well, I'll
If
put
you
you in the back
interrupt
of
me
the
again,
cage.
I'll put you in the back of a cage. Is that appropriate for it?
No.
So,
The difference being, if I can, the first one that I was shown was dynamic. There was a person with a knife. Someone was hiding in the bathroom. That was dynamic. The bad language, get on the fucking ground, shouting, dominating, disorientating. No, it's all over.
A number of issues were identified in the investigation that followed the complaint. The first was that neither you nor Constable Rolfe had activated your body-worn video cameras.
Correct.
Constable Hanson had activated his camera and then deactivated it early. So there was 8 seconds in total. A bit hard to gather objective evidence in those circumstances, do you agree?
In 8 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in circumstances where you and Constable Rolfe did not activate your body-worn video cameras.
Well, in fairness to this witness, it apparently comes after the arrest.
Well, the body worn is supposed to capture all the relevant incidents, and no doubt it could possibly capture relevant statements or observations after the event.
Well, that may be so, but the question is put conflating 2 different times.
I'm happy to clarify it. Sergeant, the allegation made by Mr. Woods was that while he was lying face down on the ground, a member of the police force kicked the left side of his face and the back right side of his head about 6 times, and that while he was kicked, after being kicked in the head, a member of the police force pulled him up onto his feet, holding the back of his neck, and it felt like he was being choked. At the time that he was detained, police were exercising a power, is that right?
Correct.
You were involved in the attempted apprehension and detaining of that person?
Me?
Yes, you were there at the scene.
No, I've turned up after. Around where the cars are there, that's when I've turned up.
And you saw that somebody was on the ground, is that right?
No, he was beside the car or in the car. I remember him being in the car.
You saw that he was being detained by police?
If he was in the car or being, yes.
You happy with that?
Yeah,
At that time, police were effecting a power, is that right?
correct,
You were then contributing to the arrest power?
correct.
You should have turned on your body-worn video in accordance with the rules on body-worn video. Do you agree?
I do.
And you failed to do that. And you accept that Constable Rolfe also failed to turn on his body-worn video?
I didn't know then, but I've,
And what you are aware of now is that Constable Hanson activated his camera and then deactivated it early. Correct? And you've been spoken to about that, haven't you?
a couple of matters arising from this incident.
Do you agree that it's not setting a good example to your patrol group if you as a sergeant don't use your body-worn video in that circumstance?
Yes and no, in that I was the last one to turn up. There's police powers being exercised. I should have turned my camera on, but I didn't. So, the letter of the law. Yes, I'm not showing the right thing.
Sergeant, if you need the body-worn video played again, we can do that, but I'm going to suggest to you he's clearly on the ground at the time that you arrive. Would you accept that from me, or would you like to see it again?
Yeah, play it again, because...
The one you just played. So Antonio Woods.
Sergeant, this young gentleman, Anton Woods, he been run from the location. It was. Is your name Constable Kirstenfeld? Are you talking to the sergeant? for interrupting me. Shut up! Sergeant, as I was saying, this is Anton Woods. He's run from the location. He's been apprehended.
Sorry, apologies if I got it wrong, but my memory was I was looking at him into the cage. I thought it was all over. But if he was on the ground, he was on the ground.
Can I suggest to you that you appear to be looking down?
I couldn't see him there.
I see. I'm looking up at the screen above your head.
Okay.
It may well be lighter than what you're able to see, but I'm going to suggest to you that you're looking down. Would you like to come and stand back here and have a look at it on the screen above you?
Okay.
Would you want to permit that to happen?
Sure. Are you suggesting that we are inferring that he's on the ground because that's where people are looking, or are you suggesting that you can actually see him?
I think in combination of the fact that that's where it appears the sergeant is looking and the words of Kirstenfeld in relation to putting him in the truck if he interrupts again. I'll just see if... Do you think you can see him on the ground? Oh. Have we got that available? Okay. We'll just play this first.
Sergeant, this young gentleman, Anton Woods, he'd been run from the location.
So that was the name given, wasn't it?
It was. Honestly, is your name Constable Kirstenfeld? Are you talking to the sergeant? Then shut up! You interrupt me again, you're going in the back of the cage for interrupting me. Shut up! Sergeant, as I was saying, this is Anton Woods. He's run from the location. He's been apprehended. Is he good for anything?
Your Honour, I'm assisted by Mr Coleridge and I think the sergeant will be too, and I'll show the sergeant over the lunch adjournment. There's actually other footage that I'm told does show him on the ground as well. Officer, additionally, in terms of the things that you were spoken to by management about these issues, you accept, don't you, that Mr Woods made a complaint about being assaulted in your presence?
Yeah, I was spoken to about that. I can't remember it. But I'm quite happy to accept that he said he was kicked in the head or something. I think that's why I'm leaning forward and I'm looking at him. And if he said I was kicked 6 times in the head or the face and I'm looking and there's nothing there, then I think they said, what should we do with him? I said PC. And if he wanted to make a complaint, he was going to be in the watch house.
PC's protective custody. Sergeant, in those circumstances where that gentleman is complaining of having been kicked by police, it's relatively dark outside. It's nevertheless a serious complaint of being kicked in the head. You're under an obligation, aren't you, in accordance with your general orders, to record the complaint?
That was one of the things I got in trouble about, that I didn't take a complaint.
So is the answer to my question yes?
Sorry.
Yes, you are under an obligation.
Yeah.
And you have since been spoken to about that by management, correct?
Correct.
And you accept that you didn't follow the general order because you didn't record the complaint?
That I didn't record the complaint.
And what the general order required, and for the benefit of my friends, it's 17-27, if you look at clause 74, a member receiving a complaint about the conduct of another member must enter details in a particular area, ascertain the complaint and what further information and witnesses or evidence they have to support the complaint, determine the type of outcome that's being sought. And it was your obligation to do that because you were in the position as the supervisor on that occasion, correct?
Correct. That's why I received the remedial.
And by remedial, you mean remedial instruction, is that right? Remedial guidance?
Guidance, yeah.
Another thing that you were advised about was that the investigation identified that Constable Kirstenfeld's interaction with Mr Woods at the time was rude and uncivil. You were present during that interaction and you didn't stop him, and you didn't criticise or condemn the behaviour. Do you agree?
Correct.
So I asked you at the beginning of my questions today about the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. You're effectively condoning that behaviour if you don't condemn it in your role. Do you agree?
Correct. And that saying probably fits better now, or I understand it.
paragraph 20 of your statement that you prepared for this inquest, you say, despite the above, where you're talking about your shock at the state of Kintore, despite the above, I enjoyed nearly all my time working in communities. I have never seen any racism directed at Aboriginal people whilst working in the Northern Territory Police. I've seen plenty of frustration displayed by police members at some of the actions of Aboriginal people. Your evidence is, at that time of doing your statement, I have never seen any racism directed at Aboriginal people whilst working in the Northern Territory. You've certainly heard racist words used though, haven't you?
I don't think so. I look at the texts that are out and I haven't heard those. The closest thing to a racist comment, and I've already talked about it, I just didn't add is someone referring to someone as a black. And that's why I went and spoke with the chap. To be honest, I was confused as to what to do with an Aboriginal calling an Aboriginal a black.
You've clearly seen racist language directed at Aboriginal people in text messages, haven't you? Or directed towards or being used to describe Aboriginal people in your text messages, haven't you?
Mine or?
You have used racist language yourself and seen it in text messages. Do you agree?
No.
Have a look at
No.
page 1 of MFIRR. The exchange is this. Begins on the 22nd of June 2019. Hope you've got your body worn on. Ha ha, on the whole time. Who was the silly bitch? You right. And Constable Rolfe replies, fuck knows, some white bitch who thinks she's Aboriginal. And your reply is, lying in the dirt pissed, doing a fucking good impression. Do you think that's racist, Sergeant?
I'm going to say yes. I'm not even going to try and defend it, sorry.
So can I suggest to you that the behaviour you're modelling there is it's okay to engage in a racist exchange?
No, in that, well, I would say my response is racial.
What's the difference
Racist.
between
I don't
a response
know.
that's racial and a racist response?
I don't know, it was a racist response.
I appreciate this is difficult to look back on this and it might make you feel uncomfortable, but it's important to get your honest reflections on this. Do you regret having that exchange with Constable Rolfe?
When it came out, I wondered whose it was, and then it was mine. I went and apologised to some friends for this text. And I told them it was mine.
Some Aboriginal friends?
Yep.
I take it that on reflection, that given your response today, Sergeant, that you feel a sense of shame in having engaged in that text exchange.
Yep.
When you look back on it, do you accept that it was a failure of your leadership to engage in that exchange with a younger officer who was on your patrol group?
I think it was a failure of a lot of things. But yes, there was no leadership shown there.
And the message you send, can I suggest to you, by engaging in that exchange, is that it's okay for a younger officer to engage in racist exchange. You sanction it, in effect.
Yes, I think so.
Do you accept, reflecting on it now, that racist language can be dehumanising, or is dehumanising, I should say?
To be honest, I don't really know what that means.
Okay, it really has the potential, doesn't it, to stop somebody seeing the person and to allow them to just group somebody together and have a bias against a group.
I think so. I think we create groups.
This exchange, the 26th of June, happens at 8:10. It's the same night as the Christopher Walker incident that I showed you the video of.
Sorry, which one?
This exchange about that I just read to you.
Yeah.
It's clearly involving a woman, so it's not the same exchange you're talking about. Do you know whether it was before or after that incident?
I don't know.
If you stop seeing a person and you use racist language, it may well lead to you treating them in a different way. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you accept the possibility that if racist language is used against somebody and normalised, then Aboriginal people may be mistreated because they're in effect seen as different?
I'm going to say yes.
You know, I'm reminded it's 1 p.m. I have about 10 or 15 more minutes.
We can take the lunch adjournment. Sorry, Mr. Stutner.
Your Honour, if I can just have 1 minute before you take the adjournment, I wanted to let you know as soon as possible, and that is that at noon I received, Mr. McNally and I received instructions to take the decision you gave this morning on review. I raise it for two reasons. One is so that we can perhaps, people can have time to consider exactly how we will proceed with my client. That's the one matter. The other is you accepted the invitation from Mr. Bowe this morning to give a decision without reasons.
No, I didn't say without reasons.
Without immediate reasons.
No, what I said was, we would be content if Your Honour gave your decision so the matter could proceed with the view to giving reasons later if necessary.
Yes.
I'm not criticising anybody. All I'm saying is reasons would be of assistance both to us in formulating our case and, of course, obviously to the Supreme Court. So I just mentioned that, but I wanted to let you know as soon after as we received the instructions as possible.
Sure, thanks for that. Officer will take the lunch adjournment. We'll be back at 2.